Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the next edition of our PSW Leadership Webinar Series. Today, we're going to be talking about balance and burnout. The moderators for today are Dimitri Walker, that's myself. I am a second-year pharmacy administration resident at UW Health. Mazen Samadi was also working with me to put together the seminar presentation. Unfortunately, he's out of the country at the moment, so he will not be joining us for the seminar discussion. And it is my pleasure to introduce to everyone Dr. Michelle Farrell. Dr. Michelle Farrell is the owner of the manager of Boscoville Pharmacy. Boscoville Pharmacy is an independent community pharmacy. It strives to provide an exceptional learning environment for community pharmacy students and offers a complete array of pharmacy services, including durable medical equipment and supplies, such as oxygen, CPAP nebulizers. They do compounding, provide immunizations, non-vaccine injectables, comprehensive medication reviews, medication synchronization, and medication packaging for all of their patients. Michelle has served on the Pharmacy Society of Wisconsin Board of Directors and is a former PSW president. Michelle enjoys serving her community and participates in Boscoville Chamber of Commerce, Boscoville Economic Development, and Gunderson Boscoville Hospital Foundation Board activities in addition to contributing to local events. Michelle lives in Boscoville with her husband Wayne and their golden retriever Bucky. In her free time, she enjoys traveling, fitness, cooking, and spending time with her family and at their farm near Mount Hope, Wisconsin. Before we jump into the seminar, I'd like to point out a few objectives to keep in mind for this presentation. And again, the facilitated discussion for our seminar today will be held on March 12th, 2019 from 12 to 1. So we're looking forward to logging into that. Our objectives for today are describing key elements that help maintain balance in a professional career, to correlate the concept of balance and burnout, and identify the appropriate manner to prioritize or say no to ill-timed tasks. With that, I'd like to open the mic for Michelle.
Well, thanks, Dimitri. I really appreciate it, and I'm actually very humbled to be asked to speak on this topic. I hope it reflects the life experiences I've had, and I hope to convey some things that might inspire the audience to pursue life balance and all of that sooner than later.
Excellent. Well, it's our pleasure to have you here. We can jump right into our first topic for discussion that we have planned for today. Could you describe in your words, what would you consider balance to be in a professional's career?
Well, I think one thing to take a step back and think about balance and recognize that balance is not something you just find. It's not something you stumble upon. It's not just going to happen. Balance is something that you have to create in your professional career, in your personal life, intentionally, and to be able to take a step back and just really think about how you feel, how you're performing, how's your family, all of it, whatever is most important to you, and really identify with those important pieces. I think so many of us say, well, I need to have a work-life balance and all of that. And I really think that do you have it or do you get it is really important to think about. And in my mind, having a balanced professional career it's sometimes really off balance. And I think it's balance for me would be being able to meet the needs and expectations of the people I touch in my professional career and be able to do that in a passionate and engaged way. And while also meeting all of those life things that I need to do, whether it's having balance with my family, having balance with my friends, taking care of myself from a health standpoint, and all of, thinking about how all of that goes together is really important. So, your career, your job, your family, those things certainly shepherd my will as I think about balance. But I do think it's something you have to intentionally work at with those that you love.
Mhm. So Michelle, could you speak a little bit too of why you think it's important to have balance in one's career? After all of us within pharmacy, from the time that we're pharmacy students, are kind of used to either first structured for us, we're taking on additional tasks, we're learning new things, and then as we move into our profession or maybe do residency, we're always, striving to be the best at what we do, learn as much as we can so that we can educate our patients and take care of our patients, as well as maybe get involved in pharmacy organizations, which you've definitely done and have been very successful at. So with all of that, I don't know if a lot of students have stopped and thought about balance.
Right. Because you're always, I think, as a pharmacy student, as a professional student, you're always super motivated to like look at what's the next thing I'm going to do? What's the next service I'm going to add? And taking a step back and thinking about how you're going to accomplish those things. And I guess I've had a few life experiences where I look back on things and I've had to change the way I look at some of my goal setting and things, because I lost my mom in 2006 to cancer, kind of out of the blue. She was gone in 6 months. Flash forward to 2015, I turned 40. I'm at the top of my career and I'm diagnosed with breast cancer. So I don't want people on the line to have to wait till they're 40 to take a step and hit the pause button, think about, okay, well, how am I going to be president and how am I going to run my business? And I would say prior to my own diagnosis, I was really floating through and thinking, how am I going to do that next thing? And not taking time for my family to step back, travel, enjoy some of the littler things. And the funny thing is when I took a step back from my practice, I'm still manager, I'm still owner, but I learned to delegate. And I think that's a skill that in our practice and my career has been so helpful to me, not only from just balancing my own life, but also kind of bolstering the people around me. Because, once I'm told I'm not going to be able to work for 12 weeks, well, who's going to do this and this and this? I was forced to think about those things. And I would challenge you earlier on in your career to really look at what's important for you to accomplish and what things on your plate are things that maybe you're not practicing at the top of your license. I think pharmacists are very, very guilty of wanting to perfect things. So they start from the beginning and they do the whole thing from beginning to end and haven't really taken a step back and looked at maybe more of the medical team-based model of, okay, what am I going to have my technicians do? Maybe if I elevate this person to a different place, we'll be able to free up someone else's time. And I think in the last 4 or 5 years, I've really looked at that. And, if I look at the amount of travel I've done, the amount of appointments I've done, the amount of organizational involvement I've done, it's really flourished in these years where I've been able to just delegate and trust in others and they're functioning better. And I think if you took a pulse on, my pharmacy staff and their own job satisfaction, it is on the increase, which is a really good feeling because they are feeling like they're vested and, they have trust and it's their career.
Well, thank you, Michelle. And again, thank you for sharing with us some of the personal challenges that you've had to work through that helps you focus on balance. Really appreciate it. So
I just really think that it is so easy to get so busy making a living, seeing the paycheck and seeing the job responsibilities and the expectations. And it's really important to level set those expectations so that you can actually make a life.
So it sounds like having a focus on balance has definitely helped you have a more fulfilling personal life, but as well a more fulfilling career, which is kind of what our next bullet was. So I'd like to ask more specifically, do you believe that inappropriate balance can lead to burnout? And could you share some of the techniques that you employ to circumvent this? I know you talked a little bit about delegation, but could you expand on that?
Certainly. I think that inappropriate balance can definitely lead to burnout. And I also think, again, going on managing responsibilities and prioritization and all of those things. So when we talk about techniques to circumvent burnout, just really kind of level setting every single day and being intentional with my schedule has been really beneficial, and being able to be intentional with the training that we do of the staff. I've learned that we all know that everyone has a little bit different way of doing a certain task and whatnot, but being able to identify really what is setting the pressure that leads to the stress, that leads to the burnout, being able to define that, identify it, and get to the root cause of it process-wise has been very beneficial. For example, just, within my technician group, recognizing that there's always stuff going on in pharmacy. You're not ever going to run out of things to do. But you can have those little microcosms of volcanoes that erupt because I think if you really reflect on it, some of the prioritization or organization that goes on within workflow communication pieces. If you really look at the techniques you're using with your staff in those areas and work at them through, we've done a lot of huddles, and we've created some apps where people can communicate, and then all those responsibilities aren't stopping with one person. At the end of the day, the headache is usually with the pharmacist, and I'm really proud that in my pharmacy we rarely, though we offer wonderful customer service, and I probably shouldn't say, hey, we're never staying late, but I find that we're able to manage our workload and just get out of the pharmacy at a decent time, because we've got a strategy for taking on what we're dealing with day to day. So those are really looking at prioritization, organization, communication across your different areas of life, I think is extremely important. And looking at your time and how you're spending it. In this era, 20 years ago, I got on my bike and I rode my bike to the library to make copies of articles, because information, I had to go and get it. Mm-hmm. If I wanted to dig in and really meet the need of somebody, I had to dig in. I'm sorry to say I didn't have Google. I can't believe I'm saying that. How old am I? So I joke with my pharmacy students a lot about that. Don't tell me you don't have time to look this up. You've got so much access to things. However, when I really look at them, we are getting so much information that it becomes hard to strike a balance, right? Mm-hmm. We've got emails, 1,000 emails a day. Where are we really, there are now so many reference sources on the internet. Am I going to use PubMed, UpToDate, Micromedics? There's just so much out there. So, being able to have mentors around you to help kind of focus some of that in today's day and age, I think is really important, because we're getting a little bit of burnout from just the sheer access to information we have and how we spend our time.
Michelle, I'm really glad that you brought up the point of access to information and how we communicate with each other. And I'd like to kind of adjust the topic for discussion number 4 and ask you more about, now that we're able to reach every single employee, every single manager, every single student on rotation, pretty much at any point in the day via their phone, through their email, and as a manager who's responsible for so many different people, I'm sure you get that 24/7 as well. Could you speak to some techniques that young professionals and even students can start thinking about and maybe implementing now to help them, not get drowned out by all of that constant communication they'll be getting for, what realistically is the rest of our lives? Because ultimately Google and Apple are not going away.
No, they're not going away, and you still you're going to get those things. And over the course of the last year and a half or so, I've tried to be intentional with the professionals I'm working with and talking with them. Okay, what methods of communication do you use? If I have something I need to get a hold of you about, how do I get a hold of you about when it's something I need an answer for, versus being able to set an expectation as it relates to email. Because I may be up at 5 a.m. sending you emails, Dimitri, and you may rather send me emails at 11:30, so at night. So I wake up and I have all that stuff. So I think for me, communicating about what the expectation is for processing random emails is really important, because I've seen young students really, either stress out about it or they've completely ignored them, and just level setting on, okay, what's the expectation? And it's even being able to include the right bucket of people in a given communication becomes really important. So it's not so fragmented and you've got two people of a department that know about one issue, and you really need the whole book of business to know about the issue. My pharmacy staff has a pharmacy email. We share cell phone numbers of every staff member, but we've recently started using an app called GroupMe, where we can group together managers and we can group together staff, and kind of, instead of using email and things like that, put out those page holders that managers really need to know, like, FYI, we're unable to get Shingrix for another 19 years or whatever it's going to be for the managers, versus for the staff, they want to be included. So maybe in that we put, hey, wear pink on Friday for breast cancer. And that's kind of helped me I'm both running around like a chicken with my head cut off to verbally communicate things, because I'm of that generation, whereas I've got young students that are like, well, just email me. And I'm thinking, well, on top of that, 1,000 emails, how are you going to get this point? So I think if you have the opportunity, being able to level set with management, what's your expectation for processing these emails? Here's some strategies that there's a lot of things I forward to my staff, and it's not because I expect anything back or forth. It's just an FYI. I think this is new, cool in community pharmacy, versus you need to read this. This is a recall we've got on valsartan. And, instead of 20 years ago, we would have printed out that recall and put it or it would have came over via fax. And we were talking about that at the PSW meeting, how the communication methods have just evolved so much. So,
I think the clear expectations and the clear inclusion of those who are actually going to be taking actionable items on these communications.
Exactly. Making sure they're involved, because it never ceases to amaze me how even staff misunderstand, or they're trying, I've gotten to this wonderful part of life where I really feel like my staff wants to take care of everything for me. So all of a sudden I'm walking into a situation they handled well, but I wasn't looped in on the email communication. So I think it's really important to structure that.
Excellent, thank you. Finally, I would like to tag back into the second point of topic 4, that focuses really specifically on what techniques would you advise professionals, including young professionals, use to both communicate and maybe make adjustments to their prioritization of tasks. When something comes up, it's important, they acknowledge that it's important, but they just have too much on their plate currently to dedicate the necessary time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think you need to learn how to say no. There's a certain level of being able to say no to certain things that, hey, maybe there is that delegation piece that happens, and it never feels good to say no. So how do we structure around some of those things? Well, I think helping people understand where you're at and what you've got on your plate and when you can complete a given task. So, in the pharmacy yesterday, I had a hospice referral I was telling you about, and I had a call on the phone about, when can I come in and get my Shingrix shot? Well, you have to be able to prioritize some of those things in your head and be able to deflect patients and say, I'm going to give you a call back on that, or I'm going to follow up with X employee in a couple of hours when I can get to those things. Again, because of, I think, text messaging and immediate gratification, we feel like failures if we can't immediately address it. I see that in young professionals a lot. We want a text message, we want to fix it. I believe it's coming from a place of, I just want to deal with it and then move on to the next thing. And there are times when it's going to take a little bit of communication because we are not robots, and we can't, and we don't want to be. We want to handle things on a more personal level. So, just being able to push pause and say, hey, I'm just in the middle of this. Can we, reschedule this? You guys were great for me. I learned the technique of both during my own health issues and as I've been involved in organizations. You get asked to present a lot, so you try to consolidate your schedule, so you're minimizing travel, so you're saving yourself time. I think that time is gold, and you never know how much you're going to have. You never know how much you're going to have left. So being able to really help people understand how valuable that is. I see young professionals a lot. I have to get this off my plate to the next place. And being able, a few of my managers talk about being able to pocket something, save it, whether it's starring it in your Gmail or putting it on your calendar for just the right time. Because so many things, if not timed properly, are going to fail. If you don't, in the way you handle them anyway, you don't have the time to thoughtfully work through it. So
timing is key. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for spending time with us today and going through some of these very important topics. I know for myself it was very enlightening, and I'm hoping the audience will have a lot to discuss during our discussion session on March 12th. A reminder for the audience that neither of the speakers today had any conflicts of interest to disclose, so if you're worried about that, have no fear. All the current pharmacy leaders and aspiring leaders, again, thank you so much for participating in this webinar series. And we will, I'd like to remind you that the next webinar on expanding population health will be released on April 2nd. Thank you very much.